So this is a life-changing amount of money. Stephen, this is $10,000 right here. Mm-hmm. And what does it take to blow $10,000 in a year per day? How much money you have to spend per day to go through $10,000? I'll make it easy for you. The answer is $27.40 a day. $27.40 a day adds up equaling $10,000 over the year. Now, before we go through where do you spend this money and how do you waste $27.40 a day, the question becomes, if you didn't waste $27.40 a day and you were able to get yourself to invest $10,000 a year, what could this be worth over time? And the answer is, in 40 years, if this was in the S&P 500 fund, which you quoted earlier, and you earned 10% annually with reinvested dividends, that stack there would grow to over $4,400,000 if you invested $27.40 a day.
Pass me this big brick.
Yeah.
So if I save half of this a day, then in, did you say 40 years?
In 40 years. So let me give you the math on a couple different ways of doing this. Okay, so what would happen if you invested roughly half of this a day? The number I use is $27.40 a day. It's the magic number. That equals $10,000 a year. If you invested that a day for 40 years, you'd have over $4,424,000.
If I invest $27 a day, in 40 years, I'll have $4 million.
Over $4 million. Let's go through the yeah buts now, because people are going to hear this. Some people are going to go, wait, what? And then we'll talk about where you find $27.40 a day. Yeah, but $4,400,000 won't be worth a lot of money in 40 years. With inflation, it won't be worth that much. It won't have the same purchasing power. My answer would be, it's worth a whole lot more than zero, right? If you're not saving any money, if you can't save $27.40 a day, you won't have $4,400,000. Yeah, but with taxes, it won't grow that much. Well, it could if it was in a retirement account. You wouldn't be paying taxes on the money. Yeah, but it's not possible to earn 10% on my money. Well, the stock market for over 100 years has averaged over 10% annually with reinvested dividends. Yeah, but the stock market's risky and complicated. Well, no, it's not. If you bought an index fund, it's actually not that risky and complicated. Yeah, but I don't know. I don't know how to get started. Well, you could start really easily. You could open up a brokerage account. You could go to a Charles Schwab, Fidelity. I'm literally going to go through them all. Vanguard, Robinhood, Coinbase, Acorns, and in less than 10 minutes, you could open up an account and be saving, pick a dollar amount, $5 a day, $10 a day, $27 a day, and that could change your life. Now, why is $10,000, Stephen, such an important dollar amount? Here's what I can tell you, having done this for 30 years. This dollar amount right here, first of all, this is 1 in 2 Americans don't have $1,000 in a bank account right now. So this is 10 times what 1 out of 2 Americans have. But more importantly, $10,000, when we do surveys and we ask people, how much money would it take to totally change your life? The answer is not $1 million. The answer is not $100,000. The answer is actually 10,000. And the question is, why is it 10,000? And the reason is that's about what the average person has in credit card debt. And they feel like they're drowning, like you talked about earlier. And they know that that could pay off their credit card debt. Or they have a job they don't like. And if you knew that if they had $10,000 in a savings account, they'd quit that job and they'd be free. They'd have to go find another job.
Or start a business or something.
Or start a business. Or, God forbid, they're in an abusive relationship and they can't leave. But if they had $10,000, they'd leave. So, a lot of people go, David, you just make this all too simple. And it's true. I do. Because when it's simple, people take action on it. So for years, I have taught this concept called the latte factor. A lot of people love me for it. Now I have a lot of people hate me for it. And I have taught that, we waste small amounts of money on little things. I had your staff bring me an iced coffee. When I started teaching the latte factor, I would talk about the idea that we waste $5 a day on coffee. And that if you don't believe you can start saving and investing, at least save $5 a day. Make your coffee at home. And people would say, but I don't want to give up my coffee. Okay, well then figure out another way to save $5 a day. This iced coffee, I don't know what it costs here in London. In New York City, that coffee right there is $9.50. Plus a tip, it's over $11. I know, because I was just in New York. So today we had a bunch of props here, and I said, well, let's try to show like what is $27.40. Like when I go to my hotel later, when I leave here, a cocktail is going to be $30, right? I was just in New York City. I had a cocktail in my hotel. It was $31.50. Wine, $50. Eating out, you go and have lunch today, it's going to be $25. And people say, well, I have to eat. And I go, I know you do, but you could also brown bag your lunch. It's what my grandmother did. Now her friends teased her, but my grandma was able to retire to California, and her friends all got stuck in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where it was cold because they couldn't afford to retire the way she did.
How many people could actually save $27 a day? Because if I go back again, just over 10 years of my life, I mean, there's no chance I could have saved $27 in a day. There's no way.
If you go back to what age?
If I go back to between like 18, 19 years old, roughly that period of my life.
Yeah.
There was no way I could have saved $27 a day.
Here's really the question. Do you have friends, and do you think you have people who work with you who are making more than $50,000 a year, and they're not saving $27 a day? They're not even saving $10 a day.
This is true. I actually did a bit of research on this, and it says approximately 40 to 50 million families, if we just take the United States, where I think there's 330 million people roughly, approximately 40 to 50 million families in the US can realistically save $27 a day. This represents roughly the top 30 to 35% of households. For everyone else, the bottom 65 to 70%, saving that amount would require either extreme poverty level budgeting or is a mathematical impossibility.
Over 40 million people they think can afford to save $27.50 a day?
Yes, it's based on income and expenditure data from 2025 to 2026. Approximately 40 to 50 million families in the US can realistically save $27 a day.
So for those 40 to 50 million people in the United States, that would be life-changing. Now, are there people who can't afford to save that? Absolutely. In the United States, I was just in Arizona. I just did a keynote speech. I asked the audience, this is when the government was shut down. I said, how many people do you think in America are taking and receiving SNAP checks?
What's that?
Thank you. Because by the way, most Americans don't even know what a SNAP check is. That's a check that the government gives to people for food. And the dollar amount's a little over $6 a day. So smart people in a room, by the way, I didn't know the answer to this a week prior either. The answer is about 41.5 million Americans get a SNAP check. When I told the room that, the room gasped. I said, so when you hear that the government was shut down for 6 weeks, that was 3 pay cycles. Well, the average American doesn't have 2 weeks of expenses set aside. I mean, I don't think everybody fully grasps the problem right now. 4 out of 10 Americans can't get their hands on $1,000 in case of emergency purposes. If you actually dig into the Federal Reserve data, it's 37% of Americans can't get their hands on $400 in case of emergency purposes. So there's a whole section of America that's truly struggling. But there's a whole lot of America that is still struggling. They're living paycheck to paycheck, but their money's being taken from them all the time because they don't have a plan for it.
For that bottom 60% of Americans that my research says wouldn't be able to save $27 a day, the data reveals a discretionary income cliff. Once you drop below the top 40% of earners, the money available after bills vanishes rapidly. The top 20%, which earn, I think, $96,000 per household, are in a surplus. The middle 20% have a $15,000 surplus, which the $27 a day takes 66% from. But the bottom 40% often have a roughly $2,000 surplus, so it's impossible for them to get to the $10,000. For that bottom 40%, what's the advice for them?
Start with something. Okay, so like we took this 50 and we said cut it in half to 25. I would say, can you save $1 a day? I have actually talked about this idea. Really simple. Could you save $10 a day for 100 days? So like if you're listening to me and you happen to really be struggling right now, my question would be, could you save $10 a day for 100 days? Why? Because it would get you to your first $1,000. And you now have more than 50% of Americans who don't have savings. And I can't tell you how many people have come back after 100 days and said, okay, I did it. It wasn't easy. For some people, saving $10 a day could be really, really hard. But you're into fitness. You saw my son who just came in here. Fitness is built through daily action, right? It's built through daily action, daily eating well, going to the gym, doing certain things on a regular basis. Saving's the same thing. There's a company called Acorns. I invested in Acorns back in 2015. Acorns came up with an app that helps you roll your change up. So if I go to Starbucks and I spend $9.50 on a coffee, you can round it up where the 50 cents to $10 is put into investments. Just rounding up your change. And people have saved tens of thousands of dollars over the last 10 years by just rounding up their change.